All right. Welcome to World Club of the Fortnight. Man, I need one of those clapboards. Um, I don't know what take we call this. This is at least take two because we're on now our new official Google page. Back we were using mine. There's a we tried to record this last week and it didn't happen. So I'm not going to say anything more than that, except if you want to see the outtake, you can go there. We've had a lot of technical difficulties, hashtag technical difficulties. So we're just going to jump right in here. I can't see the show notes, so I probably don't need to see the show notes anyway. But
I don't think probably not.
Yeah. And if Evan sounds like garbage on the recording, I'm sorry. He sounds like garbage to me, but we can both hear each other, which is at this point pretty amazing. So we are talking about Liverpool this week. Why don't you just kick it off?
Okay, will do. So Liverpool is, I guess you'd say, is my club. I have my Liverpool scarf here. I think it's showing up backwards in the picture. Just the way
it shows up correctly to us.
Okay, awesome. To me, it's backwards, which is weird. I wish I could see exactly like what you guys see, but oh well, technology. But anyway, why are they my club? Let's get into that. My first taste of European football was the 2005 Champions League final. At this point, I guess in the United States, the cable package we had did not show European football very often, and so this one must have been on like Fox or whoever had coverage at the time. And so I got to watch it, and I honestly can't remember much of the game. So I don't know if I got to see like just the penalty kick shootout, the second half, the first half, or if I just remember seeing Steven Gerrard lift the cup. Like I don't remember all of it, but if for those who don't know, in the 2005 Champions League final, Liverpool went down 0-3 to AC Milan in the first half, and then in the second half they tied it 3-3, and then went into penalty kicks, and then they won on penalty kicks in the end. And that was my first taste, and I was like, "This is totally awesome." Then, when I was a couple years older, I had a high school teammate who his favorite player was Steven Gerrard, and that just was this weird connection. And ultimately, like his fandom became my fandom. We were both really big Liverpool fans at this point. We would like leave class as early as possible to try to rush to see games that were on at like, I don't know, mid-afternoon. And I remember we ran back one time to see the 2008 Champions League semifinal against Chelsea, where Risa had this like most beautiful header I've ever seen scored in his own goal. And so Liverpool did not make it to the Champions League final that year because of that own goal in the first leg. And it was like in the 94th minute, too. So, anyway, I've just been a big Liverpool fan since then. Now that NBC has bought the rights to the Premier League and you can see the games every weekend, I try to watch every single one I can. Also involved on the Liverpool subreddit and follow the club and everybody else on Twitter. So I'd say I'm a regular, at least lurker. I wouldn't say I'm a regular poster of Liverpool content, but I do peruse it every now and then.
So I think from before, we kind of didn't go things chronologically, but I think to me it feels better to go chronologically. And I think this is the first time we're going to try that. So let's start at the founding and just talk a bit about that.
Okay, I don't have a lot about the founding. It wasn't what I wanted to spend a lot of time on, but they were founded in 1892, which for perspective is 38 years before the first World Cup. Obviously, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, travel was not like a super big thing internationally unless you were obviously traveling by ship, unless you were land. And then I guess train travel was popular at that point. I don't really know, at least in Europe, how big train travel was at that time. But anyway, I digress. But perspective there, that's 38 years before the first World Cup. I do know that they took over Anfield after Everton left Anfield. Everton FC was at Anfield or using Anfield as a stadium, and they left, and Liverpool took over the stadium or the grounds or whatever it was then, and they've held on to it ever since, I guess. That's pretty much all I know about the founding, or all I cared to get into today.
Cool. So we already talked about a little bit of past success. So let's talk about some of the past successes and maybe if there's any notable failures.
Failures, I don't really know. I know that you could classify the last 25 years maybe as a failure, but we'll get to that. So Liverpool has had 61 total titles. As far as I could tell, they've had 18 league titles, none of which are Premier League titles, but they have had 18 league titles before the Premier League. And then they've had 43 cups and super cups, including 5 Champions League, 3 Europa Leagues, or whatever was the equivalent to the Europa League at the point, and then 3 UEFA Super Cups. So they've won a lot of trophies. I think the only team in England that has more total titles is Manchester United. And then after that, I think Manchester United's also in the 60s. And I think after that, it drops off to like in the 40s with maybe Arsenal. I'm not 100% certain there. Don't quote me on that. So they've had a lot of success, but they haven't won the league in basically since the Premier League started in the early 90s. And that's, you could consider that a failure. They haven't, I mean, they've won Champions Leagues since then, or at least won the 2005 Champions League. They've been in Champions League finals. They've been to Europa League finals. They've won some FA Cups, some League Cups, but no Premier League title in a very long time. Probably, I mean, no Premier League title, but no league title probably since I've been born, which is or close to it. So I think a lot of fans would consider that a failure. But other than that, I don't think there's any colossal failures unless there's something that happened way back in the past that I don't know about.
How many times have they finished second? Do you happen to know? Because I know that they have finished second.
They finished second a lot. I don't know that number off the top of my head. If I find it later, I'll let you know. But yes, they have had numerous second places. They have lost in the championship of several events several times. So it's being close but no cigar, as you would say, several times. Or the other quote, I guess, would be being bridesmaid but never the bride.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that's been sort of a recurring theme on the show so far is sort of like what the definition of success is. And of course, that was, I think, Arsene Wenger, his definition of success ultimately led to him leaving Arsenal, which, I mean, I understand the like rhetoric is not great, but like, I don't really see. I mean, like that's a topic for another day. But you know, you finish second, you're in the Champions League, and you don't have to qualify. I mean, so I'd say top 3 is pretty excellent. Top 4, you're running the risk of not making those lucrative group stages. But.
Well, and again, with our definition of success, I guess you could say that. If you're not getting any better, maybe you're not succeeding. So if you're constantly finishing second and third, like eventually you're going to be like, well, let's try something different to try to get to first place. And I don't think that's what was up with Arsene Wenger, but I think that's part of it. We're kind of stagnant, which Liverpool have not been over the past 30 years. It's been up and down and up and down. I remember them finishing like 8th in the league, and that was, I mean, 8th out of 20 is not bad for several teams, but for, you know, the team with the second most titles in England, that's not very good.
And are you even getting I mean, assuming that like the winners of the cups are also in the top 7, are you even getting a Europa League spot at 8?
No, they did. No, because I think even worst case scenario, it's 7th that gets the Europa League spot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. They have finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 times in second place, but only 3 of those were in the Premier League era. They did finish second in 1990, 1991. That was the last time that it was not the Premier League. But since then, they finished second 3 times.
So you mentioned Steven Gerrard earlier. I did want to just ask a quick question. What is he doing now? I think I know the answer to this, and I think it's relevant to an upcoming club, but
it probably is. He's the manager at Rangers.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought I heard that, and a discussion for another day, mostly, I think. But why don't you talk a little bit about the notable players, including Steven Gerrard?
Well, honestly, because of what we've been doing, I thought that it would be best. We have not talked about a German-speaking country yet, although that's kind of or a team from a German-speaking country yet. But that was kind of where my input into the show was going to come in, even though I've picked some Spanish-speaking countries. I guess you could say that when we did International, that was German heritage. But again, I digress. So I looked at solely German speakers and Spanish speakers from the club. So there's a long list of players of English descent or that are from England or from Scotland or from Wales or from Ireland. Obviously, before players traveled a lot more than they did now to find their homes. So I focused just on the German and the Spanish speakers, and then I divided it up into 2 categories, mostly because Wikipedia did this. Is that those players that had more than 100 appearances, and then those players that had in between 25 and 99 appearances. And so I got a lot of information on a lot of different players. I won't mention a lot of them, especially those with the 25 to 99. Most of them, they were around the club maybe a season or 2 and then moved on, never any great impact on it. Except for I did look into some of the more current players just because they're there now or they've been there the past few years. But it was fun to do this because I got to see a lot of the influences on the 2005 Champions League final and then the 2007 Champions League final where they lost. And that was just really exciting to kind of go back into that past to see all that. So I don't know if there's a best way to do this. The way I have it listed out is the German speakers and then the Spanish speakers. And I'll probably just say a little bit of note about each one, unless they're one of my favorite players. So I will butcher this guy's name. I've been trying to get back into my German, but I think it's Dietmar Hamann. Was a German midfielder that played at Liverpool from 1999 to 2006. He made 283 appearances. He came on at halftime of the 2005 final, which is a big deal because that's when they turned it around. He had a broke toe. I don't know if he broke it during the play. Probably he did, but he kept playing, and then he scored the first penalty in PKs for Liverpool. So on a broke toe, scored one of the most influential goals he probably could have ever scored for Liverpool. So I'd say that dude's pretty important. And I didn't even really know that he was there because I didn't start really looking at the roster until 2007 as a fan. So that's kind of cool. German player, never even knew he was at the club that much, and huge impact on why I love the team in the first place. The other German speakers that have a lot of appearances were Emre Can, who is a German international. He was there from 2014 to 2018. He has now moved on to Juventus. He was a midfielder, 167 appearances, and he came on in the 83rd minute in the 2018 Champions League final. Liverpool were, I think, down at that point thanks to some Bale goals. So I don't know what was going on there. If we took off a defender and he came on to kind of maybe help us score another goal, I don't know. And then the last one is not from not from Germany, but he is from Slovakia. He made 320 appearances, and that is Martin Skrtel. As far as I could tell, when I was looking at these, Slovakia had a lot of different languages that I guess called itself home in Slovakia. So I don't know if he was really a German speaker or not, but the fact that he was from Slovakia and it said, hey, Slovakia's got German as a national language. I was like, all right, we'll go with it. So he was at the club from 2008 to 2016, and I loved Martin Skirtle. He wasn't like the greatest defender in the world, but man, that dude was terrifying. And if I saw him in an alley, I would run away immediately. He was a terrifying bald man and just terrifying. So that's it for the German speakers that had, I guess, played a big influence. So we can move to the Spanish speakers now. Unless you have a question, Doug, about one of them, I don't know if it's a good time for me to break from my talking so that you can ask a question.
No, I mean, those are both fairly recent. I do kind of wonder, like, how many. I mean, maybe we'll find this out on the Spanish side if, like, further back there were more international players. And obviously the Premier League brought in a lot more money, and then the Bozeman stuff with just player movement, that certainly helped more international players come in. But it wasn't like international players didn't exist before then. So,
well, yeah. I'm glad you said that, because honestly, they did not have many international players until like I'd say the mid to late 90s. They were all from Great Britain or Ireland for the most part. And I was kind of surprised to see that as well, that most of these are fairly recent, which is good for me, maybe good for our listeners who are interested in some recent players. But I was kind of surprised not to have a few, like a couple maybe Spanish speakers or German speakers. And there might have been some players that knew the languages, but without going into like knowing them personally, I probably would never know that kind of information. But yeah, I'm glad you noticed that, because I noticed the same thing. And our Spanish speakers on this list, they're all recent as well, at least the ones that have over 100 caps. So the first two on this list are arguably I'd say my favorites midfielders other than Steven Gerrard that have been through Liverpool. And that's Javier Mascherano, who moved on to Barcelona and I believe is in China now.
I think that's right. He was in China anyway.
Okay. So he was at the club from 2007 to 2010. He played 78 minutes in the 2007 Champions League final before being subbed off for Peter Crouch. He made 139 appearances. He was just a rock of a center defensive midfielder. And we've never had a defensive midfielder like him since he left in 2010. I think it's been missed greatly. And that might be one of the reasons why we haven't been doing so well since his departure. Then you have Xabi Alonso, who is also one of my favorite midfielders through Liverpool history. I failed to mention this. Javier Mascherano is from Argentina. Xabi Alonso is from Spain. Most of these guys are from Spain. But Xabi, he's a midfielder from 2004 to 2009, played every minute of the 2005 and 2007 Champions League final. He had 210 appearances at the club. And if Mascherano was like the rock, like defensive midfielder, Alonso was like the glue guy who glued from the defense into the attack. He was known for being like a really good passer of the ball, could pick out like great passes to open up his teammates. He didn't score a lot of goals, and he wasn't like the defensive midfielder that Mascherano was, but he was extremely vital to the team. I was surprised he didn't take a penalty in 2005. He had actually in the penalty shootout, he had actually missed a penalty earlier in the game and got the rebound and then scored, and that's what tied it up 3-3. And so I don't know if because he missed that one, he like didn't want to take one in the PK shootout, or if I just don't know what the reasoning was. That's probably why, but it's just strange to me. He scored, he was the PK taker, and then he wasn't a PK taker. So I digress again. But those two guys were at the heart of the team when I became like a major fan, and just watching them play and not being able to replace them since they left has been it's been hard to watch. us try to plug guys into those spots, and they just haven't been the same quality as they were when they were at the club. So, again, moving forward, this guy was next on the list. He is a fan favorite of a lot of guys. Again, from the same time period, Luis Garcia from Spain, 2004 to 2007 with the club. He played forward, kind of right midfield, right winger, 121 appearances, played every minute in the 2005 Champions League final. And I'm surprised he also didn't take a penalty in the shootout. No explanation for that either. Maybe that's just the depth of PK takers we had. I don't know. Then you have Pepe Reina, who's probably at the club the longest on this list, from 2005 to 2014. He was the goalkeeper in the 2007 Champions League final. Ironically, Liverpool wins the 2005 Champions League final. Then they immediately replace their goalkeeper because they don't think their goalkeeper was good enough in Dudek from Poland. So they bring in Pepe Reina. It was like, you just won Champions League, but your goalkeeper wasn't good enough. And so they bring in Pepe Reina, who's there for 394 appearances. And I liked Pepe. I think that it was about the right time for him to move on when he did. I think it helped his career moving on, and I think it helped Liverpool kind of move on after him as well. We did have some kind of bad years of goalkeepers before Becker, but I think it was the right time for everybody at that point. Then you have Fernando Torres of Spain, forward, 2007, 2011, 142 appearances, 81 goals. He had 33 goals and 46 appearances in 2007 and 2008 alone. And injuries kind of derailed the end of his career at Liverpool. And then he moved on to Chelsea. And a lot of fans, myself included, destroyed him for that, hated him for that. And like, you just don't go from Liverpool to Chelsea. In hindsight, he was terrible at Chelsea. And so I was like, all right, if he's going to be terrible, I'd rather him be terrible somewhere else than at Liverpool. Since then, he went to Atletico, and he's kind of revived it at the end. I don't know how many years he has left in his career, but I was glad after he left Chelsea that he was kind of able to bounce back a little bit. And then the last two were very current. So you have Alberto Moreno from Spain. He plays left back. He is still at the club, although a lot of news saying that he might not be at the club after this season. He's been there since 2014. He's made 141 appearances, but he's often blamed for like defensive problems. He does play left back. He's very fast, but he's out of position a lot, and he tries to make up for that with speed, and sometimes he fails. He's just in the wrong spot at the wrong times, or he makes fouls, and he's one of these guys who's like, you love his personality. He's just a fun guy. He works hard, but man, he doesn't seem to be very smart or learn very well from his mistakes. And so you love the guy for that, but you kind of don't want to see him on the team. Or at least on the field. So it's probably about time that he moves on. I'll be kind of sad because he is that kind of bundle of energy, and he's fun to watch going forward. But yeah, I don't think he really has a place playing left back for the team. He did really well, but then we signed Andy Robertson, and when we signed Andy Robertson, Moreno started, and Robertson came in once Moreno was like injured or needed a break, and Liverpool's never looked back since. And Robertson's been considered by many to be like the best left back in the Premier League, or at least in the top 2 or 3. So, I'm kind of grateful for his mistakes, because otherwise we might not have signed Robertson and had him now. And then the last one, I feel like I've been talking for forever, is Luis Suarez from Uruguay. Also a forward, just like Torres. So he was kind of the Spanish-speaking forward we were missing since Torres left. He scored 82 goals with the club, 133 appearances, and some of these numbers are just tremendous. Leading up to his signing, he scored 49 goals and 47 appearances for Ajax in 2009, 2010, which is phenomenal. 31 goals and 37 appearances in 2013, 2014 for Liverpool, and then 30 goals and 44 appearances in the season before that. I don't know why I had him out of order, but 30 goals in consecutive seasons is really, really impressive. So that's it for like the major impact, the guys who had over 100 appearances. So I'll pause. Doug, do you have any questions now?
Well, we should probably start trying to wrap things up just because we got kind of started kind of late. So
Yeah.
That's the only real comment I have at the moment.
All right, so I will run through the names of the other guys. I won't mention anything about them, but I do think we do need to mention the managers at the end because we do have a big manager from each one of these countries, one from Germany, one from Spain. But the other guys that were honorable mention were guys that I really haven't heard of too much, but Karl-Heinz Riedel, Marcus Babbel, Christian Zyga from Germany, Joel Matip, who's at the club now, is Cameroon and German descent, and then Loris Karius, who was the goalkeeper last year but moved on, also from German descent. And then Spanish speakers, we have some from Argentina. We have Mark Gonzalez from Chile. We have a few more from Spain: Jose Enrique, Alberto Riera, Alvaro Arbeloa, Fernando Morientes, Antonio Nunez, and Josemi, or Jose Me, I guess is how you pronounce it. I don't know. But anyway, so there was a lot of influences. Again, most of those guys are post the turn of the millennium, but they're there. And then finally, we got the two managers that are probably really significant recently. You have Rafael Benitez, or Rafa, from Spain. He's been there. He was there at 2004 to 2010. Managed 350 games. Had a 55% winning percentage. 55%. That's the highest since King Kenny from 1985 to 1991. He won one FA Cup, one Community Shield, one Champions League, one UEFA Super Cup. And I'm biased, but he's my second favorite manager of all time. And then he left, and then we kind of bounced around some managers, and then we finally got to Jurgen Klopp, who's a German speaker, and he's been there since 2015. He's managed about 190 games now. Also had a 55 percentage winning percentage. However, he has not won any titles. He has lost 3 finals. That I can remember. It was either a League Cup final, a Europa League final, and now a Champions League final last year. But he's been credited for returning Liverpool to like their highest quality since Rafa left. And I'm biased again, but he's my favorite manager. So, and for reference, Bill Shankly, who is like one of, if not like the Liverpool manager of note, who like brought the team to all of its glory, he only had a 52% winning percentage. So both of these managers won more games than he did. They just not necessarily brought the titles that he did. So that's all I have.
Yeah, so normally we talk about the rivalries, but we haven't talked about either of the major rivals so far on the show. So we can probably spend some more time actually talking about the Liverpool rivalries with Everton and Manchester United when we actually talk about those clubs, which who knows when that might be, but certainly that we can do that. Then I hate to cut it short, but I got to take my cats to the vet, so here in a bit. So is there anything real quick that you wanted to say before we close up everything, Evan?
I don't think so. Just in the future, I feel like I talked a lot. I don't know if that's the format that we necessarily always want with these. Especially, this is different because I know the club very well, and I know a lot of these players, and am very passionate about it. So I guess that's maybe the difference here.
And also, like, I know the club well enough to where like I don't necessarily need to ask questions. So
Yeah.
It was a club that I had less knowledge about, then I probably would have been answering or asking more questions.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's a lot of these players. These days they move around, so we may end up talking about some of them again when we talk about clubs that they were at before Liverpool or after Liverpool. So. Yeah, there's always that opportunity in the future. But for right now, I just want to thank everybody for watching another World Club of the Fortnight.